Hello out there and welcome to part 4, and in this part of my video series we're going to start looking at the client-side logic for the login functionality, and we're going to start out with a mock client. And so I'm going to do a dummy client, and let me just show you what that's about. But before we get to that, I just wanted to follow up on something from the previous video to show you what the status is. Alright, so as you may have noticed, or if you remember from last time, I have now moved my two buttons to the right side here just to show you that it can be done, and I do that by having a reference to the HBox that contains the two buttons, these two, right? So I get that through the fxml file. I have my button box, it's an HBox with the fx ID, and then I can just set the alignment to baseline right, or I have a bunch of other center left, bottom right, and so on. Right. So a simple way to set the alignment of the buttons here. If I were to put it at, say, bottom right, let's see if I remove the small gap at the bottom. And come on, little window, there we go. Right. So okay, so now it's, I don't know, slightly further down, not much difference. Okay, another thing I wanted to mention is that I have this init method because I cannot have a constructor. Well, I can have a constructor, but it must be without any parameters here. And later on I'm going to give it a view model, for example, so I can't really use the constructor for anything. So the constructor is implicitly, or it's automatically called when I do the loading part, which happens here, right? When I load something, I'm loading the fxml file, and then the JavaFX framework automatically creates the controller for me. So it's already controlled here, created here. So I don't have access to call the constructor. So I have an init method instead to act as a constructor. Okay, so that was a quick follow-up from last time. So this time around we're going to do the code part for the login. I have the UML diagram here, and to simulate that I'm doing this with me and myself in a semester project in a team of 2, we are going to say the first me will do the client side, and then the other me will do the server side, to sort of simulate that 2 group members are working in parallel, and you can do this. One is working on the server side while the other one is working on the client side. So we're going to do the first video here, and depending on how long time it takes, maybe I'll put it together, but at least we're going to start out with just doing down to the interface, and then instead of having a socket client, I'm just going to have a dummy client which will simulate that I fetch some data from the server and send it back again, and in this case that means checking the user. So when I click a button up here, it will make method calls down to my dummy client, and this one will then check whether it's a real user or not, or a valid user, and then send something back. And then the next part will be to do the part down here with a very simple main method to just act as a client to call methods here to test this part. So I can develop the server part and the client part independently, and then when I have the 2 parts, we're going to put them together by just changing the dummy client out with a socket client, and then hopefully everything works. So that's the plan, to show you how you can work in parallel in your semester project or when you do the assignment. Alright, so I have the login controller. It doesn't do much. Currently I can just print things out. If you remember from last time here, I just print this out. Right, fairly boring. So what we need to do is set up the view model factory so I can provide view models. I need a model factory so I can create models, and I need a client factory so I can create clients. Now, the client factory will of course initially return my dummy client, but because my entire system just depends on an interface, then it's pretty easy to change or to swap out the dummy client with the socket client when the need comes or when the server is ready to do it. So that's one of the big benefits here. Instead of me creating clients multiple places, if I had multiple models or so on, then I make sure they are all using the same one. I get it from the factory, so I just need to change one line of code, and then my entire system here is using a different type of client instead of the dummy one. So we're going to start with the factories. I will define a view model factory, a model factory, and a client factory, and we do have them already, I believe. I have my view model factory. It doesn't do much, but I can create my login view model. I call it login view model, and I don't have the class yet, so I'm going to need that down here and say new class login view model. Right. So according to my diagram, I have the login view model, and it must be created in this one here. So yes, now I remember to click that one. The login view model doesn't do much yet. So this one, I just need to import it. And then I need a get method, public login view model, get login view model. And if that one, I will do what we call lazy instantiation here. If it's null, then I will create it like this, and then return it, login view model. Okay, so the first time this method is called, it's created because it's null, and the second time I'm just reusing the same login view model. And most of the time that's a good approach. There's no need to create multiple login view models. I just have that one view, so I might as well reuse what I have. And sometimes it's better to create new ones every time. That's sort of something you will have to evaluate and judge by yourself. All right, I need the model factory, and this one has a private model. Also here I have a public get model, and it returns a model. So I check again if this one is null, then I create it. Model equals new, and I don't have a class for this one. I just have the interface, right? So I need a model manager class, model manager, like that. New model manager. Yeah, and right now it's complaining because my model manager does not implement model, so just fix it like this. There we go. And now everything is good, and I just need to return it. All right, so that's the view model factory in place. The model factory is almost in place. Well, I can get the model, and the client factory is just the last thing we need, and we say client factory. I have a private client, there we go, and I have a public, public client get client, and we do the same thing. If client is equals to null, then I instantiate it, and this time I instantiate it to be a dummy client like this, new, and then I return the client. And then later on, when I want to swap it out with my socket clients, I just need to say socket client here instead, and that's the only thing I need to change, and then hopefully the entire system works still. So I just need to create my dummy client, Java class dummy client, there we go, and it must implement the client interface like that. And let me just import it. Okay, so now all my factories can return what they need to return, but I still need this association here, right? The view model factory needs to know about the model factory, so whenever I create a view model, I can provide it with a model. So let's just get that part in place. We say in the start, where do we have it? Battleship app, here we go. Okay, so I create the client factory first. New client factory, like that. Then we create so I do it sort of bottom up. I create this one first because that one depends on the client, so I have to create this one before that one, so I can give the client to the model. I hope that makes sense. But because of the dependency here, the association goes down from the model manager to the client. That means the client must be in place so I can provide it to the model manager, right? So I create my client factory first, and then we create the model factory, and we say new model factory, and I give it the client factory, just like my UML diagram. Then model factory knows about the client factory so that it can put clients into the models. Let's just create a constructor here, like that, and I save the client factory, like this. Say this client factory is equal to the one that I get through my constructor here. I don't need that one. And then my model manager, right? This class here, model manager, it needs to know about a client. So I get that from the client factory. So back here, model manager, it needs to know about a client. I get a client like that. And then I need to create a constructor that matches like this. And now my model manager knows about a client, right? So I have the sort of the bottom part in place. Model factory and client factory fits together. The model manager here now knows about a client interface. It doesn't know whether it's a socket client or my dummy client. I could just create the dummy client here, dummy client, like this, and we make it implement that one, and like that. Okay, so I have this one. It doesn't connect to anything. It just has an array list of users. So whenever I ask, hey, can you validate this user for me, the dummy client will then check its own array list and then say yes or no. All right, so we have the model manager. I need to make the login view model know about the model. So we go to the this one, model factory. That's okay. I need a view model factory. And the view model factory must know about the model factory. I create a constructor again. So now my view model factory knows about model factories. Model factory mf. We say this mf is equal to the one that I get from my constructor here. All right. So now my model factory is known by the view model factory, and I can put a model into my login view model. There's a lot of models going on, but my login view model must know about the model, right? And I set that up in the factories over here. So I just need to say model factory get model, and then create an appropriate constructor in the login view model, like that. Now again, my login view model just knows about the interface. And login view model just knows about the interface. I could make a dummy model manager if I wanted to sort of ignore this part. Or maybe when you're doing the semester project, one group member is doing the view part, and that just depends on the model, and then another group member is doing the model, so you can sort of work on both sides of the interface as long as you agree upon the methods in here. So again, we have the interface to sort of separate things and make the coupling loose. And I have almost everything in place, I think. Now the view handler finally must know about the view model factory, right? I have that here. View handler knows about a view model factory. So we set that up. We add it as a parameter, right? So we say private view model factory. This view model factory is equal to the one given to me. So just to introduce a new term, or maybe reintroduce an old term, I don't know, we call this dependency injection. My view handler depends on the view model factory, and I inject that through the constructor. And this is usually a very good approach. It creates a loose coupling. My view handler just knows about, well, the factory. It's even more beneficial when we do it with the interfaces. So let me take the view model, my login view model, right? Again, dependency injection. I inject a model interface. So my login view model does not care about anything other than the interface and the functionality that this interface promises. And that functionality can be provided by a model manager or a dummy model manager or something other. And my login view model does not need to care about that. So a loose coupling here. Okay, so I have all my associations in place almost. I just need the last part here. Now the view handler knows about the view model factory, and I must make sure that the login controller knows about its associated login view model. And we go to the view handler. So whenever I initialize it, I have mentioned this before, but this is where I want to provide a view model, right? Login view model, and I just add that as a parameter. Okay, so I have my factories and my core part, all the associations here are set up, and that will make it easier for me to do the next part when I do the registration window. So the core part here is important to get in place first. All right, so now we can move on to a little bit of the actual code. Let me just close all this. So we do a top-down approach again. I start with the login controller and put that together with the login view model. We move on to the model manager and then down to the dummy client, so on. And we say login controller. I don't want that. This one here is still doesn't do anything. That's okay. Now I know about the view model here, so I just need to save that for future use. Login view model, and we say this. Not even close. This login view model is equal to the one that I get from my constructor. So again, dependency injection. I get it from the outside, so it's not the responsibility of the login controller to create its view model. We get that from somewhere else. So we can also manage it somewhere else. That's usually a good approach. Okay, so I need to do the data binding that you hopefully know about. I need to bind the texts that I insert here to something in my view model. So let's create the view model part first. I need some string properties. String property, username, password, and I will instantiate them down here. Username is equal to new simple string property, it's fine, and we say the password is equal to the same, and I need some getters for both of them, and you'll notice that it creates both a getter to get the actual value inside the property, but I don't need that, and then one for the string property itself, and this is the one I need, so I can bind to it. And you'll notice the naming convention, it's not called get, it's called username and then suffixed with property. So same thing for this one down here. So now I have the two properties, and in the login controller we want to bind to them. So let's say username text field, text property. You'll see even JavaFX implemented the naming convention. There's no get. I but this is the way to access the text property. I want to bind it, and I want to do it bidirectional. So bidirectional means if I insert something into the text field, it's automatically put into the username property here. And if I modify the username property from the login view model, then it's automatically updated in the text field. And I want to be able to clear it from the login view model, so I do a bidirectional. So we go login model, and I need to get the username property, and we want to bind the password text fields in a similar way. Login view model, password property. All right, and that means now that the login view model knows about whatever data I have in my view, or whatever data the user puts into the view. Now we want to have the login button actually do something, and most of the time these action event button methods, they will just call a method on the view model, and that's basically it. Alright, so let me just create this method. Right, so what do I want to do here when the user selects to log in? Well, I want to say to my model, which I need to put in a field variable so I can access it, model, and we say this dot model equal to model, and my model, I need to log in, and I will just give it the username dot get, so I get the string, the data inside the username property, and I also need a password dot get, and then I just create the method. Right? So now that's created in my interface. Let me just rename these username, password. Okay, so let's just take it from the start here. Whenever a button is clicked, the login button, then I tell the login view model to take whatever text from these and then send them to the model. Let's just see what happens. I want to print out this one. Oh, just to follow through and make sure that I have, everything set up correctly. So hopefully when I run this and click the login button, I will print out whatever data I put in, whatever username and password I put in. I just need one thing, because currently I have a method here which is not implemented in the model. So let me just go to the implementation. You see it here, it's complaining, and I want to implement methods. And I might as well just print out username and password down here as well from the model, just to make sure. So let's run this. And here we go. I will insert whatever username, trolls, 1, 2, 3, 4, and register doesn't do anything. It's still just printing out. And if I click this one, I actually see from the login view model, I see these two printed out, and I also see it from the model here. So it's going pretty well, I think. Yeah. If we just compare that to my sequence diagram, just to see how far we are, I can press the login button. That will react in the login controller. The login controller will, well, I don't have these arguments because of the data binding, so I could just remove them like that. I just call login on the view model here. The view model will add the username and the password to the model, and then the model, well, it doesn't do anything yet, but it's going to call a method on my dummy client, and then we sort of ignore this part over here and just have the client return back again. So let's go ahead and do that. The model manager. This one here will say client login, and I want to log in. Maybe I want to create a new. Let's just skip this one. I need some kind of data container according to my diagram, right? Something to put my login information, my user information. I put that into the account here. Maybe I should call this user. I think I will call it user, Right, so I need a user class, and I need that one. Let's put that in the shared folder. I put it in the shared because both, that's not supposed to go there. Client server, that's supposed to be in the server. Doesn't do anything yet, but okay. So in the shared, I will have a package called data transfer. And I put that in the shared because both the client and the server needs to know about it. Data transfer. Let me just close that one. I want a new class called user. I will give it a private string user name and a private string password, and that's enough for now. Maybe I am going to need an ID or something else later on. Alt insert a constructor, and I select both of them so they are set there, and Alt insert again with a getter for both of them. There we go. Okay, so that's my user. I need to implement serializable so that I can send it across the network, which I'm going to do at some point. All right, so the model manager needs to say user. Yep, that one, user equals new user with the username and the password, and that's what I want to send to the server eventually to validate. Okay, so it's complaining about the client, and that's because I need to set my client up here, private client, and I need to get it from my constructor. This client is equal to the client. So now it's complaining about the interface not knowing a method called login, and I actually want to return no, not yet. So the idea is that I send the user to the server, and then at some point the server is done validating it and it sends a response back, so it's asynchronously. So when the client receives a response from the server, I need to create a notification using the observer pattern to my model manager. So when the server, this one will ask, hey, can you validate this user for me? At some point we say, okay, I return whatever is validated. Here I write an object back using my network streams. And then when this one receives a result, it's going to create a notification to the model manager. We make a notification to the login view model, and this one will react up here. But we are skipping the server part for now, and just here I will make a notification. I will validate whatever the user is, and then I will make a notification back to the model manager. So I need a few things for this. This one needs to be implemented in my dummy client. Yes. I need to have a property change support interface. Is the one that we have seen before. I'm going to put it in the shared util, and you'll see now it's actually inside the data transfer. I just want to move it, refactor, rename, and move it to here. And that did not go as planned. New refactor, move, sorry. I want to put it in shared, but not in this one. Refactor, there we go. Hopefully, slightly better. Util, and I will create my interface. Property change support. And I need the interface. And it will have methods. Let me just copy this. Alright, it's not support because that's the class. I need to name it subject. Sorry about that. It's a subject. We want to listen to the subject, and I insert the methods here. And oh yeah, all right, it's still called support because I didn't rename it correctly. Refactor, rename file, like that. Refactor. Okay. So now I have my subject, and let me just finish my client. So my dummy client here, I will just, when I initialize it, say I need a constructor, and let's make a private list of users, like that. And maybe I just instantiate it to be a new array list, and then I say users. So I'm just hard coding some users here. New user, trolls, and the password is trolls123. And I want another one. We'll just pick my other colleague, Jakob. He's going to be honored. Honorable mention, Jakob123. Okay, so these are now my valid users in the system. In my login down here, I need to validate it. So I loop through my list of users. This is the for each loop. I think you've seen it. If u.username equals whatever I insert here, user.username, then I have found the correct user. And if the password also matches, we say u.getPassword equals user.getPassword. We return, this is where I want to make notifications, right? So I will just make a string called result, and initially it's okay. Or maybe something else. It doesn't matter. We'll do this. And then I say if I find the username but the password doesn't match, so in here, if I get to this part of the if statement, this means that I have found the correct username and the password matches, and I just want to return OK. Otherwise, I want to say result equals incorrect password. And if I don't find the user, it's initially false. If I do find the user here, but at the end if I found the user found, let's just see, and nope, if not user found, then we say, right, I'm confusing myself, then we say the result is equal to user not found. Okay. So now my three options is that the result can either be okay, it can be incorrect password, or it can be the user found. And then at the end, I'm going to make a notification using my observer pattern with that result. So that means I need my observer pattern now. My client must extend the property change subject. I haven't done that yet. So we go to the client interface, we say extends property change subject, this one, and that means I need to implement some methods. Yep, all 4 of them. Now I need a property change support so that I can make these notifications, and I will just instantiate it down here. New one. Yeah, that's good. New one with this. There we go. Okay, if it's a name, name, we call the add property change listener with the listener. Else I want to say support.add property change listener with name and listener, right? Listener. Same thing. So for this one down here, we want to say support. This is where we don't listen to a specific event, but just all of them. Do that. And down here, we say support, remove a specific listener. And up here, we say if name null. Maybe I should also check if name is equal to empty string. But yeah, doesn't matter. We say remove property change listener. I want to remove that one. Else support remove based on the name and the listener. Okay, so that's the observer pattern in place. Now my client can make notifications, right? We're going to use that. So whenever the client receives something from the server, it's going to make a notification to the model manager. Model manager is going to make notifications all the way up. Okay, so I can now say support, and I can fire a property change event, and I need to give it a name, and that is probably something called login result. And I'm just going to put that. I'm going to create something common, so I will just create a class. I will make an enum, and I will call it event type, just like my event type. So these are the types of events that I can have in my system: login, move, response, whatever. And it's an enum. Okay, and I need a login result, like that. Okay, so the name of the event type I want to fire here, event type is login result to string, and I want to fire the old value. Well, that's nothing, so I just give it null, and then the new one is result. So I'm firing an event called login result. The toString method will just make a string called login result. There's no old value, so that doesn't matter, and the new one is this one. Okay, so now we have down, let me just find this one. I have the button, I click it to the controller, to the view model, to the model. The model asks to validate the client, and the client can now make a notification back to the model. So I just need to make the model listen to the client, right? We are down here. I will just, can I put a little, I could not. What is that? Right, this is where we are, here. Okay, my waypoint check mark is becoming a very long video. We are almost done. I am firing this, so I need to listen to it. Let me just close all these again. I need to listen to it in my model, need to react to that event. So I go to my model manager. I say client, not here. In the constructor, I say client add property change listener, and it must be, I want to listen to the events called login result. And when this happens, I want to call it the on login result method, which I will just create here, like that. Okay, and it is of type toString, like that. I could of course have made a class with just static, final strings. Maybe that would have been easier. I don't know, maybe I'll change that. We're using this as string for now, and not like that. Okay, so that means whenever a client here makes or fires an event with this name, I want this method to be called. And well, I basically want something similar to happen. So, but I also want to say just here private user logged in user. So this is the user that is logged in. Maybe I need that for later. So we go property change event, and I just want to name this EVT, and we say get new value, and this one is of type string. We call it login result, and it's a string, and I want to cast it as a string because I know it's a string. Okay, so this is the result of my logging in. If that result is okay, then we say login result. Then I want to say my logged in user is equal to well, that's the thing that I get here. Maybe we say down here, we say logged in user, and if it's not okay, then I will remove it again. This is probably okay for now. Okay, so if my login succeeded, I'm just keeping whatever user I put here. If it didn't succeed, I am clearing it so there's no login information. Now I need to do the same thing again here with the fire event, right? The way that we push data to the view model is to do the similar fire an event. See that the model here also extends property change subject. Why are you out there? Here we go. Right, so I need to do something similar. We can just copy paste. I know that usually we don't like to copy paste, but that is apparently the way to do things. So for these parts at least. All right, I need a support. I put that up here. Yep, I need to instantiate it in the constructor, and then currently it's complaining that it tries to override something but doesn't find what method I want to override. So that's because my model does not extend property change subject, this one here. Okay, and now that is good again. All is well in the world. Okay, I should probably verify that I have something working. I mean, my dummy client here, I can just, let me take the user, and I want to create a toString. Well, these two, yep, interesting. Haven't seen that before. That's probably good. Okay, so whenever I reach the dummy client, I just want to print out the user client, so like that. And then also, let's see if we get something back to the model. So is my on login result method called result received in model login result, right? So hopefully I am now printing out the correct thing here, which based on what I'm trying to log in with is either, okay or not okay. So let's just see what happens. I try to run it again. All right, there we go. I can put in trolls 12, so that's the incorrect password, but the user is correct. And I found incorrect password. Okay, so that's the result received, and my client also receives the correct stuff. If I click this one, I get user not found. If I do this one here, incorrect password, that is inconvenient. Let me just check. Dummy client trolls123. If username get password equals the password here, not very good. Let me just restart. All right, we're trying again. Trolls and trolls12 shouldn't work. Incorrect password. Just clear that. In user not found. And finally, okay, right? so my login functionality seems to work from the button press all the way down to my dummy client and back here. And we're definitely going to separate this into another video when we do the server. But I just need the final step of this part here. That should be fairly quick. Okay, so I need to make another notification from here to the login view model. And when I receive a result here, we say support, fire property change, and I want to fire a login result, same thing here, and I want to say null and login result. Right. This might seem a bit tedious that I fire an event from here to here and then another one from here to here, and you might say the login view model might as well just listen to the client. And we could argue that adding a listener to the model would just say, if I do this, I could say client add property change listener, name listener. So now it's actually listening to the client. The view model still doesn't know what it listens to. It just knows that it gets results or responses or whatever. So it could be okay. But in my case, I actually want to do something with the result in my model before I send it on to the view model, right? Because I want to make sure that I'm not storing a user that's not valid. All right, so my view model can now listen to events. Let's find the login view model. In the login view model here, we say model add property change listener. It's the event type of login result to string, and I want to say this on login response, whatever we call this. I create the method. Right, so again, this is just very shorthand to say when the model fires this type of event, I want this method to be called, which is down here. All right, so what do I want to happen when the model successfully logs me in or gives me a response? I want to have something that the GUI can react to. So we say login state login response, right? It's another string property like that. I need another get method like that, password, it's called login response, and I want to return that one. So this is the one that I want to use from my controller to react to it. So we just say here t, just to, I don't have that much to write, and I want a string, and I'll say that's the result, and we put that in the login response set result. Okay, so I have a property that I'm updating with my login result, and then I can react to that in the controller, and the controller can then either display an error message, or it can tell the view handler to open another view. And that just means I need my final step. We have now reacted to the response here. Let me just print out login response, get value. We say VM response like that, and I try to run it again. All right, here we go. We say trolls 1, 2, 3. I want to log in, and VM response is okay. All right, sorry, I got confused because I'm sending this, writing it out twice, but that's because both I forgot to change that. So my view model was listening to the model and the client, which was not supposed to happen. So this is okay. I do get my response printed out. So that means we have now pressed a button. I get to the dummy client. I get a result back. and that part works. Now my dummy client is hidden behind that interface, as I mentioned, so I can just swap that out when I have the server in place, which we will do in the next video. And I just need the final part here to react to this in the login controller. Let me just close that. And I need to update the controller, login controller. Now there should be some kind of text that I can update. Let's just see if I forgot that. And my potential error message here, right? I want to be able to print something out if I don't log in successfully. So that's what I'm looking for. And it seems like I may have forgotten to add that error label. So there's nothing in here. Let's just say grid pane. Let's see if I can fix this without messing up too much. Grid pane. I need to add how do I do that? Can I like that? What happens? Label. Okay, yeah. Initially I want that to be large, and I don't know how much text I'm going to need. We'll just do like that, and I don't want anything in it. All right, but I still need a hbox. Okay, maybe that should have been. Okay, that didn't mess up too much. Okay, I just need a login result label like that. Right, cool. Okay, let's just check that it is updated. Login result label. Okay, so I can put something in that now, and in my controller I need to have that, so I create a field, Alt Enter to quick fix that. So now I have that. I just let me just make that private like that. Okay, it's not currently used, so I need to bind this to a property, right? Text property, and I want to bind it first. Bind bidirectional. Like that, and say login view model get. What's going on? It's not a get method, right? We're using that one, but I also want to be able to react to it in a specific way. So I say login view model. So this just means that whatever I put in my view model here, right? Whenever I receive a response from the model, then I don't need to print this out. Then I put that in, and it automatically updates the GUI. But I also want to say that if it's okay, that the string is okay, then I want to actually act on that, right? I want to swap views. So we say login view model, and I say login response property, and then I want to add a change listener. And we just go, I do this way. Right, this is creating an anonymous class for me. I don't know if you've seen these, and I want to call a on login result with the t1 like that. I'll just create a method. So the idea is that whenever something changes in the login result label, then I react to it here. And I can just replace with a lambda, slightly more readable, I think. So whenever this one changes, the login response property changes from the view model, then I can react to it, and we can say if okay equals whatever I get here, then we go we'll do this next time, swap to lobby view. All right, so if it's not okay, then I'll just show it but if it is okay, then we swap view. So let's see if this is printed out if I do it correctly. Right, I can print out, well, I can try to type in this here, like that, login, incorrect password. Okay, it's good. I can try this one, user not found. Maybe I should make this text red at some point. We'll see if I can figure out how to do that. And here, 1, 2, 3, it's okay. And we want to swap to lobby view. And we will do that later. I think this is plenty of video for now. It got way longer than expected, but apparently this takes time. So we have now, well, we just need the last step, but I am pushing the login button. I'm putting it to the client, and the client is just my dummy implementation, and then it's making notifications all the way up. So at some point in the next video, we're going to do the other part, and then at the end, we will swap out the dummy client with a socket client so that we can use the functionality down here. And that means when I click the button up here, we will make method calls to the model manager. The model manager will create a user object and send to the client, which will be sent to the server. This one will ask the model down here to validate it, and this one will ask the account home to validate it. And then we're sending a response back again up here, and the client is making a notification to the model manager. The model manager is making a notification to the view model, and the view model is updating its local property, right? The login response property. And that means we react to that in the login controller, and next time or next time we're going to tell the view handler, hey, I want you to swap to the lobby view instead, right? So all the way to the bottom, all the way up again, and this is often a very good start, because you will see when I have this implemented, I have what we call a vertical cut. I can reach my dummy database and get a response all the way back up. And for the next time you're going to need that, it's very similar. Basically copy paste methods and rename them, and just, you know, the idea is similar for all my views. Whenever I want to send a new register, I want to create a new client or user, I send that back down, I get a response back up. Whenever I want to go to the lobby and send a challenge, I send a challenge all the way to the server, and the server will figure out who to send it back to. Whenever I make a move in my turn of the game, I send that down, and the server will send that back. And it's going to be a very similar approach for all of them, with the sequence diagram being very similar, just with a few different names on the methods here. So I have a core structure, you might say, in place, the core architecture of the system. So it's easier to expand upon. And well, not yet, but we're doing the server part in the next video, in case, well, you know, assuming I haven't killed you yet. So, all right, we're going to